All right, so good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And so a huge thank you to all of you for joining us live on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you're coming in from. We love that you're taking some time out of your first month back in class after some crazy 8 months of weirdness in school to take part as we highlight such cool stories and people. So a couple notes before we get in today. First of all, crazy day, 7 programs by the end of the day. We've done a whole bunch on ocean plastic, which is our theme of the month and our theme of today's talk too. So if you want to check those out, they're on our YouTube channel. Every program we do stays on YouTube forever, so you can look back 5 years for anything that you are interested in anytime. Today's talk is a little bit different too. So for anyone joining on YouTube, you're welcome to participate in this. For live groups, you can too, although we're going to find some other ways to get you involved. But we are bringing back the Slido app. So Slido is a way that you can interact with the broadcast, take part in some interactive polls, share your questions, and upvote your favorites. So our live groups do not need to do this. If you're joining on YouTube, go to slido.com with the event code PLASTIC. We're going to have some polls throughout the broadcast that you can take part in, and I encourage you to check that out. So without further ado, again, ocean plastics is our theme of the month of September, and I want to welcome in Dwight Owens from Ocean Networks Canada. They've been a partner of mine in a variety of initiatives over several years now. It's thrilling to get them in for their first ever Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. And today we're going to address the issue of ocean plastic and some of the solutions that you guys can act on from your classrooms or at home. So Dwight, thank you so much for joining us today, and let's take it away.
All right, Jesse, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm very happy to have all the teachers and the kids who are interested in this issue of plastics in our ocean. And you know, the good thing about this issue is every one of us touches plastic every day, so we're all part of the solution. So I'm going to share some things here, and you know, we have some questions that we could ask about trash in the ocean. How much is there in the ocean? Where is it? And what kinds of trash are littering our oceans? And what are the impacts of this plastic on organisms, on ecosystems? And also, what can we do about it? And in fact, there are many good things that are already happening. So before I start, I would just like to acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen peoples within whose traditional territory I live, and the Songhees, the Esquimalt, the Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. And here's a little teaching from some local people, the Tsartlip and Tsawat people. And they teach us that people are linked to the land. The four winds, the trees, the birds, the animals, and the fish were all people long ago. Nature, animals, fish, fire, water are imbued with spiritual values that have the power to heal, to give life, provide bounty and guidance. So there's much we can learn from the local people who have lived on the land wherever we are. And so it's good to pay attention. Now, although I live near the ocean, I haven't always lived here. In fact, I was born and raised in a place far removed from the ocean, but I've long been attracted to the oceans. And being near the water somehow makes me feel more alive. It awakens a wild instinct in me. So now I work for Ocean Networks Canada, and we are operating ocean observatories on the bottom of the ocean in the Pacific and the Arctic Ocean and in the Atlantic, and we're doing all kinds of really exciting types of work in the ocean. So whether you live near the ocean or far away from the ocean, it means something, I think, to all of us. So let's go to Slido, and I'm curious to hear, what does the ocean mean to you? So if you could enter some ideas into Slido, and Jesse, if you could let me know what we're seeing come up, that would be great.
Absolutely. So I have it up. It's activated on Slido. Anyone who wants to join in there can. And if you don't want to join in on Slido and just want to share in the YouTube chat bar, you're welcome to do that too. Either one works for me, and I look forward to your answers. Don't be shy for anyone who's coming in. We've got a few other live groups joining on YouTube. So it's a full house today, over 120 kids coming in, which is awesome. So far, one thing, beauty and clean air just came in. To me, it means just coastal wildlife. So when I go to the ocean, I love seeing the animals that are there. We've been seeing a lot of that in Backyard Bio recently too. Swimming, mysterious life, it means a lot. Fish in uncharted territory, the unknown, water source, all sorts of great stuff, Dwight.
Wow, okay, yeah, the ocean, I think somehow we're just connected to the ocean. It really means a lot to all of us. So this is Dr. Sylvia Earle, who you may know about from Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if not, make sure to watch her YouTube presentation. She is a very famous oceanographer and explorer in the ocean. For her whole life, she's been advocating for the ocean. And in fact, when she was young, she lived for 6 months underwater in this Atlantis sea base. So several years ago, she actually won the TED Prize. And this little clip here is from her speech that she gave when she won the TED Prize. Now, unfortunately, because we have a little audio problem, I'm going to play the clip and you won't be able to hear her clearly. And we'll provide that link for you. And while she's talking, I'll sort of summarize what she's saying, if that works for you, Jesse.
That's perfect. And I'll link in the chat bar the full TED Talk from her too, so that everyone can check that out. But do narrate away.
Okay, she says, the poet Auden said that thousands have lived without love, but none without water. 97% of the ocean is, the Earth is, livable surface is water. Without water, we may be on Mars. She gave a talk not so long ago at the World Bank. She showed this amazing picture of the Earth. She said, there it is, the World Bank. That's where all the assets are. So, but we've been drawing down these assets much faster than natural systems can replenish them. Every breath we take connects us to the ocean. No matter where we live on Earth, most of the oxygen in the atmosphere comes from the ocean. And most of the carbon that goes into the atmosphere is eventually absorbed into the ocean. It drives climate and weather. It stabilizes life on Earth. It forms clouds and water that returns to the Earth as rain and sleet and snow. Provides home for about 97% of life on Earth. And she ends by saying, if there's no water, there's no life. No blue, no green. So I have a question here. Maybe some people can type this into Slido or chat. Where do you think this is?
All right, so I'm checking Slido. I'll check the YouTube comment section for our live teachers. I can come to you, actually. Mr. Chanfrini's class, where do you guys think this is? You were to guess.
Well, it looks like
Mongolia. Whereabouts?
Ontario.
Mongolia! All right, and Miss Kaufman's class, what do you guys think? And
Victoria? The beach?
the beach, yeah. Good guess. I like it. All right, got a couple other classes. Let's see if anyone's typing in on Slido. India, Asia, we've got joining in on Slido. Fantastic, guys. Hawaii, so a whole bunch of options. Dwight, tell us.
Well, some of those guesses were getting close, but this is actually one of the base camps at Mount Everest. You know, one of the highest mountain in the world, and it makes you wonder, are there any trash-free places left on Earth? But in the case of the oceans, definitely not trash-free. So here's one more short clip from Dr. Earl. She's describing the impacts that we're having on the ocean. She says, we're putting hundreds of millions of tons of trash into the ocean, millions of tons of nets that continue to kill. We're clogging the ocean and clogging the planet's circulatory system. So as I go forward here, I'd like each of you to find one thing that you're going to remember and one thing that you can do. And I'll ask you about these things when we get to the end. Now, it's estimated 8 million tons of plastic garbage are going into the oceans every year. And how much is 8 million tons? Well, that's enough to line up 5 grocery bags of trash on every foot of coastline in the world. Now, a lot of the trash that gets into the ocean gets there from rivers. And so even if you live far from the ocean, the trash going from the rivers could be ending up as pollution in the ocean. Now, here's a river. This is in Indonesia. And we'll share the clip, the link to this clip as well. But this woman is showing us this river that goes, I think it goes through Jakarta, Indonesia. And if you look on both sides of the river, it looks like piles of stuff. Well, that's plastic. Plastic bags and other kinds of trash are just completely lining. See, those are all plastic bags lining the shores of this river. There's just so much trash here. And the woman is making the point here that this trash is, you know, we get the idea that, well, we just have to manage our trash better and we have to recycle. But what she's saying is, this is not manageable. This is impossible to clean up. And really, this issue of trash in our rivers and our oceans, we need to be thinking about the source, where it comes from, and what we can do to stop it at the source. Here you can see these guys trying to get some trash out of the water and with a net, and there's so much that there's no way. Meters and meters deep of trash. How can they deal with it? And here we can see by these labels that this trash is coming from maybe from North America, maybe from different multinational corporations, fossil fuel corporations. So they're all involved in this production of plastic that we treat as something worthless. And because we treat it as worthless, it becomes trash that becomes a huge problem for many people around the world. Now, there was a study that found that if we don't change the path we're on, by the year 2050, there could be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. Just think about that for a moment. More plastic than fish. Is that the future we want? So we've got another question on Slido, and that will be, where can you find plastic trash in the ocean? So where do you think we would look if we wanted to find this trash? And
great question, guys. Share on YouTube, share in the chat as well. Slido, it's up for everyone on there. If you want to start answering your questions, we had tons of answers the first time at the end there, which is great. And may I say, Dwight, you were doing an awesome job of narrating videos that you did not expect to be narrating today. Well done. So the answers we're getting in so far, Pacific Garbage Patch, good to whoever shared that for knowing that exists. Everywhere is our main answer. We've gotten that a few times. The garbage belt and along shorelines and anywhere. So anywhere, everywhere, trash in the ocean all over the place, everywhere on our beaches. I think we got some people that got the right idea here.
All right. Well, I think these are all very good answers, and we could kind of categorize these or break these down into locations. One is on the seashore, and if you go to almost any seashore, you can find garbage. And floating on the surface of the ocean, of course, like the Pacific Garbage Patch and other garbage patches in the oceans. So floating, but also we can find plastic that has submerged and it's drifting in the water column deep in the water. And even on the seafloor, we can find trash, even in the deepest parts of the ocean. And there's one more place that wasn't mentioned, or maybe it was mentioned, Jesse, but that would be inside of sea creatures, birds and turtles and fish and seals and whales and other animals. They may have plastic in their bodies. Now, if we look at the sizes of plastic, these 4 maps are showing different sizes. And it turns out most of the plastic that's in the ocean is actually tiny little bits of plastic. Jesse, I'm going to ask, can you see my cursor or not?
Bring it. If it's not on the screen already, then no, I cannot.
Okay, well, you see these red areas on the screen, and those are areas where there are 100,000 to 1,000,000 pieces of plastic per square kilometer. And the top 2 maps are showing areas where there are bits that are 1/3 up to 1 millimeter. That's on the upper left, and 1 millimeter to 5 millimeters in size in the upper right. So most of this is really small stuff, but it's quite widespread. Now, this arrow here is pointing to the Mariana Trench. That's the deepest place in the whole global ocean. It's in the Pacific. This place called Challenger Deep is over 10, almost 11 kilometers deep. And when explorers visited there recently, they found these discarded fiber optic cables littering the bottom of the deepest place on Earth. So remote, so hard to get to, and it's littered with trash. In another area of the Mariana Trench, researchers found this organism. It was new to science. They gave it a new name, Erythrines plasticus. And why did they call it plasticus? Well, because this little amphipod, when they examined its body, they found little tiny fragments of microplastics inside the tissues of this creature, even though it lives 6 kilometers below the surface. So what kinds of plastic are littering the ocean? And Jesse, I'm going to just charge ahead on this particular question because we have foams like styrofoam littering our beaches and filaments like fishing line. In fact, fishing debris comprise 20% of all marine debris, things like balled up fishing line and ghost nets. What's a ghost net? Does anyone know what a ghost net is? And Jesse, let me know if we've got some answers on that one.
Yeah, well, I can ask actually some of the questions live. So let me go to Miss Cunningham's class. So they're joining us in Bowmanville, Ontario. Welcome in, guys. If you guys have a thought, do you guys know what ghost nets are in your class? You can just demute your microphone and let us know. We got Miss Hone's class on YouTube. They are answering it. They just saying nets, plastic bags, fish nets that are invisible. So Miss Cunningham, if you guys have a thought, let me know. But we're getting some good answers now. Bags, plastic bags, wire cables we're getting on YouTube. So skirting the issue, you guys are getting there. I love the thoughts. But yeah, I don't think anyone's hit it straight on the nose.
No, not quite there yet, Jesse.
No? So why don't you tell us? We're so excited.
Ghost nets are nets that have been lost to the fishermen. So they're still out there. They're still drifting, floating, catching things, killing things, but they will never be recovered by the fishermen. So that's why they're called ghost nets. Now, here's a very large whale. It's got nets that are wrapped around its tail. And imagine how hard it would be to swim with that on your tail. Other animals like seals get all wrapped up in nets and ropes. This gray seal was rescued and freed. This one here, who knows how long it was trapped? You can see it's bleeding and it must be quite painful. Another type of plastic is the film, or the like plastic bags. And when you look at these plastic bags, do they remind you of something? And do you see anything coming in, Jesse, what they remind people of?
Ooh, that was pretty pretty speedy. If anyone wants to answer, how about Mr. Armstrong's group? If you guys demute your microphone. Let's see. Mr. Armstrong's class, has any thoughts? Or Mr. Cianfrini's class? What do you guys think, Mr. Cianfrini's group?
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish! I think you nailed it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You got it.
Exactly, jellyfish. You know, and that's what they look like to turtles. And turtles have been eating jellyfish for millions of years. So, you know, what happens when a turtle eats a plastic bag? Now, here's another type of plastic, which is fragments, different colors and sizes, broken down bits and pieces of plastic. And you can find these everywhere on beaches throughout the oceans. Another type of plastic here is the nurdle. These are industrial plastic pellets, small in size, and this is the form in which the plastic is transported to factories. And there it's melted down and formed into products. But sometimes these nurdles spill and they get loose in the ocean. And when you look at these, do they remind you of something? What do these look like?
How about Miss Kaufman's class? What do you guys think?
Beef or eggs?
Eggs, okay. I like it. Fish eggs in Mr. Cianfrini's class typing in. Anyone on YouTube have any thoughts? Eggs. We got eggs and pellets galore. Is it
Okay. Well, you know, they could look like fish eggs. On this picture here is showing zooplankton. And these are microscopic or very small sized creatures living in the oceans. And that number 8 is actually a fish egg. And the number 6 is a gastropod larvae. And so, you know, some of these things, these small things that look like nurdles are plankton. And plankton is an important, very important source of food for marine creatures. Small animals would eat plankton, but big creatures like whales and whale sharks and manta rays would eat zooplankton. And these are manta rays. This is in the Pacific Ocean near Indonesia. And you can see the water is just full of trash. And there's big pieces there, probably many, many microscopic pieces of trash here. And these are filter feeding mantas. And you have to wonder, as you see these creatures, how much plastic that they're eating, how much gets into their bodies. Now, this creature here is a sea squirt. And it was found that sea squirts off of Israel's coast in the Mediterranean had high levels of phthalate acid esters, PAEs, and microplastics inside their bodies. Now, phthalates are a kind of a chemical that's added to plastic. They're called plasticizers. They make the plastic more flexible, more plasticky. But the PAEs, when they get into our bodies or the bodies of animals in the ocean, they can have health impacts. They can disrupt our endocrine system. So that could be a problem. If they don't have the plastic, what about the plasticizers? Now, these are northern fulmars. These are seabirds. They live in the very, very high Arctic in northern Canada. And these birds here were found, even though they live very, very far from any source of plastic pollution, their eggs had phthalates, PAEs, in them. So that's a health problem for these birds. Now, the good news is that plastic is very durable. And I'm not against plastic. Plastic is super useful material. It can be made into so many different things. And in fact, our life as we know it would not be the same without plastic. On the other hand, the bad news is that plastic is very durable. And so this is the issue, because we use this amazing substance to create products that last a long time. And in the case of a foamed buoy, you probably want it to last 50 years. That seems like a good idea. But do you want a styrofoam cup to be around for 50 years in the ocean environment? Or fishing line? Do you want fishing line to last 600 years? I'm just going out on a limb here, Jesse. I think that's longer than the average lifespan of a fisherman.
Yeah.
How about a plastic bag? 10 to 20 years, when we might use that bag for just 10 to 20 minutes. Or a plastic bottle, 450 years in the marine environment. These plastic beverage holders, like six-pack holders, could last 400 years in the ocean. But this next one is the most crazy of all. Disposable diapers, 450 years. This is a product that is designed to be thrown away. So why do we make it out of something that can last 450 years in the ocean? Makes me think that archaeologists of the future will be finding these things and they'll just shake their head and ask, what were we thinking? So there's an arrow on this map and it's pointing to Midway Island. Midway Island is midway, halfway between Japan and California, the west coast of North America. And as you can see, Midway Island is just out in the middle of the ocean. It's very far from any city, any population center. There are a few people who live there, very small population, but it's a super important place for seabirds like albatrosses. And this is an important nesting ground for them. Unfortunately, because of the plastic that is spread throughout the Pacific Ocean, these albatrosses are getting sick and they're dying. And the reason is because they're eating the plastic. Now, this is a dead albatross, and you can see that it's eaten a cigarette lighter and bottle caps and other bits of plastic. And, once it eats those, they're stuck inside its stomach. And the animal, it must be very uncomfortable, and then the animal will starve. So, if you're like me and if you see things like this, you may think you want to do something. And in fact, we can all do something. So that's our next Slido question. What simple changes could you make in your life to be part of the solution to this plastic problem?
Fantastic. So I put that up in Slido if you guys want to share in the YouTube chat bar as well. Miss Kaufman's class, what do you guys think too? Any thoughts of what you can do in your life to help prevent these sort of things from happening?
Pick up trash in the water.
Clean up trash in the water. Great solution. Love it.
Pick up any trash that I see.
Clean up any trash. See, we're going one step further, cleaning up trash in general. Mr. Cianfrini's class, what do you guys think?
Recycle plastics and take care of garbage.
Recycle plastics, take out garbage. We've got, take garbage outside. That's awesome. In Slido, switch to reusable bags, clean up reusable grocery bags. I can stop using as much plastic every day. So we've got a lot of reduce, reuse, and recycle stuff here, Dwight. This is great stuff.
All right, that's wonderful. So we're well on our way to solutions. And I just have a few more to share for you. I think the simplest first thing that all of us, I'm sure we're doing this, but we can remind others, don't litter, don't splash your trash, right? So that's, it all starts with us. And this was mentioned, instead of these plastic throwaway bags that might still be there 20 years later in the ocean, how about reusable cloth bags that we can take to the market and use again and again? Instead of these throwaway diapers. If we know anybody that has a young baby, then maybe we could encourage them to use cloth diapers that can be cleaned and reused. How about instead of this pump bottle with liquid soap, liquid hand soap, how about hand soap? We don't need the plastic bottle, do we? Or instead of plastic fork, plastic knife, plastic spoon, plastic utensils, do we really need to have these? Usually it's because we don't have anything else at the time, but there are these kits, like this little fork, knife, spoon kit that you can carry around. I have a little kit I carry on my backpack. And so if I go somewhere, if I need utensils, I've got them. And they're mine. I can clean them. I can reuse them. These are K-cups. And K-cups are single-use little pods, can be used for making coffee or tea or different kinds of drinks. And the issue with K-cups is, you use it once and it becomes trash. The amount of K-cups that have been trashed could wrap around the planet 10 times. So, instead of that, if we have some coffee drinkers in our family, maybe we could encourage them to switch to the old-fashioned French press that produces really good tasting, excellent coffee. Or instead of, a single-use plastic bottle that becomes trash for 450 years, how about we use our own containers, our own bottles that we could carry around in our backpack? Instead of straws that are trashing beaches everywhere around the world, how about a metal straw that you can clean and you can reuse it? Or instead of getting your ice cream in a styrofoam cup, how about get your ice cream in a cone? After all, it's called an ice cream cone for a reason. You can eat that. And Jesse, you remember the 3 R's. You mentioned the 3 R's. There's also the idea of the 5 R's: reduce, reuse, reform, recycle, and refuse. And this last one, refuse, I think is super important, because we have power when we say, actually, no thanks. I don't want that straw. I don't want an extra bag. I don't want the fork and knife and spoon. No thanks. So these are all things that we can do individually. But as important as it is to change our habits, it's also important to change the laws. And in fact, 69 countries are taking action on plastic bags. And 40 countries and many states, many provinces have bottle deposit systems, and these reduce the amount of trash that gets into the landfills, into rivers, and into oceans. So here's another Slido question, Jesse. How could you convince your government to do something about plastic trash?
Well, we have it up. We've got a few answers starting to pour in. If it's on YouTube, please let me know there too. We've had a ton of YouTube participation in this, actually, and at least 4 other full classes joining us from around Canada and the US. Welcome into all you guys. If any of our live classes want to type it in the chat too. I think I have one good answer. There we go. We got it on Slido. The one I was looking for. Write a petition or write letters to senators or Congress people or whatever the equivalent is wherever you're joining from. That's a great solution. I love it, guys. We got write letters are all over the place. One I'd like to highlight too while we're here, because we've mentioned a few other presentations, is March. Make yourself seen. It's the best time to be a kid interested in these topics in the world. You look at what Greta's done with million kid marches all around the world. So other great solutions. So safe protests, write a petition, email your representatives, all great answers. Dwight, what do you have for us as a solution?
Well, I want to go back to that write letters. I think that's super, super important. And what they say is that a handwritten letter is the most effective, because when that gets to the representative's office, the senator or the member of parliament's office, the staffers have to open it. They have to respond. It's a handwritten letter, and the most powerful handwritten letters of all are the ones that come from kids. And I've had classrooms of kids that all wrote letters, and they got answers back from the decision makers in government. So remember at the beginning, I said, what will you remember and what will you do? And I'd like to hear what people are going to remember and do from this talk.
Well, we can come into the classes and see what they're thinking. In fact, we got a lot of questions along these fronts in Slido today, which has been amazing. The biggest questions of the day are, what can we do? How can we help out? Some of our classes have already presented a whole bunch of solutions. So, Dwight, I don't know if you have more presentation after this, but we can dive in with questions, see what sort of solutions people are looking for, and the next 10 minutes, spend some time chatting together.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Awesome. All right. So if you're on YouTube, you want to share questions, let me know where you're joining from in the chat bar. I'd love to take as many as we can. But we'll start with Mr. Chanfrini's class, again, joining us in Ontario. Welcome in Toronto, Ontario, guys. You have a question for us? Come on up.
So we each one say that as a class, we wanted to remember that everything you throw away affects every other animal and species. And something we can do is just take care of our own schoolyard with garbage and recycling.
Awesome, guys. So that's a great
excellent.
Yeah, I want to come back if you guys have questions in a minute too. Mr. Armstrong's class, if you guys want to unmute your mic and turn on your video, I'd love to see you guys for some questions as well. But Ms. Kaufman's class, what are some solutions you guys can do? And if you have any questions for Dwight, please share with us.
Okay. Eric. It's all right if you forget.
I forget.
That's okay. Landon. Shout it loud. Okay, how? Okay, try and, like, if we have a net or we're fishing, make sure we have the line with us when we leave. Because we have lots of fishers, people that love to fish in this class. That was one thing. And remember to pick up trash. We also, like the other class, saying to keep our schoolyard clean. That's something that we could do here.
Fantastic, guys. Great answers, Ms. Kaufman's group. So what I want to do is take a quick question from Slido for you, Dwight, as well, and then we'll take some more solutions from other classes on YouTube. So one of the questions we get a lot when we do plastic presentations, and Maddox shared this with us on Slido, is why do people trash the ocean? Like, why does this plastic end up there in the first place? It's sort of a difficult question to grapple with, but if you could give us your take on it, I'd love that.
Well, I think it gets back to we're not aware. People aren't aware of the consequences. And also we tend to treat plastic like it has no value because it's just everywhere and it's free. Basically, it's free. So that means it's worthless. Since it's worthless, it's trash. But we're not aware of how, trash then becomes a big problem, especially when we do it on a large global scale. It becomes a problem for so many animals, so many ecosystems, so many different people around the world who depend on the oceans. So I think, an important part is to understand that whatever we do, everything we do matters. Everything we do and don't do can make a difference. So I'd say awareness and understanding is a lack of that is why there's trash in the ocean, and also because we don't value. If plastic was expensive, we wouldn't be throwing it out. We'd be recycling it.
Fantastic, Dwight. That's awesome, man. I want to stress too, we got a bunch of groups on YouTube, Illinois, New York, Ontario, and more. So we're having a nice international discussion here today. One thing I'd encourage you to check out as well on Instagram. I think literally a few days ago, David Attenborough, who is my personal hero, was the fastest to 1 million followers in the world. He's releasing a bunch of videos on ways that you can take part and help make the world a better place. So David Attenborough, sort of jewel of Britain, if you're keen to check that out. Let me check, Slido, if there's anything more here. We've got a bunch of questions along what we've already covered today, which is great. So what I want to see is Mr. Cianfrini's class. If you guys have a question for us or for Dwight, come on up.
Yes, Michael, go.
You don't have to go right after me.
No worries.
How does the trash get to the ocean?
Yes.
Well, there's so many different ways. One is if trash is on the land, then it can be blown by the wind into little streams, and then streams flow into rivers, and rivers flow into bigger rivers, and then they flow into the ocean. So if you look at, there's some studies, and they were looking at the major sources of trash in the oceans. It's actually rivers. And some of those big rivers, the Amazon or some rivers in Asia, are huge sources of plastic pollution for the ocean. Now, other places that we could get trash into the ocean is from beaches, shorelines, and also from ships. In the olden days, people used to just dump their trash off their ships, and that's not really an acceptable practice anymore these days, but I think it still does happen sometimes. But I'd say the main source is rivers, which means from anywhere on the land, it can get into a stream and then end up in a river.
We've covered rivers leading to the ocean and some of the solutions there a lot. What I'm going to do actually is, while we're waiting for the next question, showcase a really cool solution to help prevent trash in rivers from ending up in the ocean. So I'll bring that up in a minute. But I want to go to Ms. Kaufman's class for a question in just a sec. Before I want to share this line from Slido, which is amazing. It's from a student that wanted to let everyone know that their solution to plastic is next time that someone asks them if they want a bag at a grocery store, they'll say that they have their own and walk away like a boss. So thank you to that student. That's amazing. Ms. Kaufman's class, if you guys want to come up for a question, go for it. Love all the hands up, guys. You're so keen.
Okay. Yep. We're trying to figure out where to stand to hear you. Here. Okay, really loud and look right at my computer.
How does the plastic fit in the first place?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Kaufman. Could you repeat that?
How does the plastic get there in the first place?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, well, the plastic, first of all, it's made out of fossil fuels like natural gas and oil. And so these natural resources then can be transformed into the like the pellets, the nurdles that we saw, or other kinds of oils or gases that are transformed into plastic. And then once you have these base materials, then it's shipped to factories, and the factories will make plastic. Some plastic products are designed to last for a long, long, long time, but others are just for single use and thrown away. And it's that throwing away. If we don't pay attention, if we don't keep track, if we don't recycle, then the plastic becomes lost, and it gets into the rivers, into the oceans. So it's this kind of sequence of events.
Yeah. Dwight, that's marvelous, man. I wish we could take more questions all day long, but unfortunately time flies and you're having this much fun. So we're near the end of the broadcast. So what I'm going to do is share two quick things. One is I mentioned that Dwight was from Ocean Networks Canada, and so the bottom of your screen. Oh, Dwight,
yeah. I wonder, I did have just two little slides.
Perfect. Yeah, bring those up for us. And while you're bringing them up and getting your screen share ready, I'll just share these quick things for all our students. So Ocean Networks Canada, you can check out the website there, share more questions, find out more. It's a remarkable organization. I encourage you to do so. And we love the river question as we get to highlight Mr. Trash Wheel. So if you want like one of the coolest ways of engaging students, Mr. Trash Wheel is an amazing program, Baltimore Harbor, and I think there's a few others around the world now.
Yeah.
And it's and thank you. I'm so glad you've heard of it too.
Oh yeah.
When you're home, we'll share it in a link to all the students at the end of the broadcast too. So there we go.
All right.
Share away, man. Sorry.
All right. I just wanted to say that, all of us can do little things, but if we add it up together, we can make a huge difference. And again, I want to say thank you from Ocean Networks Canada and mention that you can connect. We have a website, we have a data portal, we have a YouTube channel, Twitter channel, Instagram, and a learning email. And all these resources will then be shared with you by Jesse.
Outstanding.
That's it.
Thanks, Dwight. So we'll pass along resource list at the end of the broadcast too. You can share more questions there. We'd love to see more questions that we could possibly take, which is a great problem to have. So what I want to do now, and Dwight, you're new to this, but we're going to de-mute the microphone to Ms. Kaufman and Mr. Cianfrini's group. You guys want to join me in saying a big thank you to Dwight for joining us today? Have a wonderful day.